Max Stein, and I love video games!
I'm the Mega Buck. I really love video games.
I am Raph, and I also love video games. Maybe not as much as Mac, though, apparently.
I was just about to say the same thing. I don't know if I'll ever love video games as much as Mac just did, but what's up, friends? Benny here. Happy Friday. I love video games.
And welcome to the Game Treasure Podcast, where we discuss treasured video games of yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Why did I scream like a child? Because it's almost Christmas.
Oh,
And
yes.
today, we are specifically and solely talking about the
Oh my God. Nintendo 64.
I get it now.
They're excited. They must be excited. That's what the mom says. They must be excited. I think they're excited. So it's another one of our console carousels. The console carousel being where we basically take a console and pick our 5 favorite games from it, like with nostalgia goggles on. Like the purpose is to
They're
not
always on.
pick the objectively 5 best games. We're literally just going over our favorite games. We usually get a nice mix because we vary in ages, so there's some interesting stuff that happens there. The Nintendo 64, what a beloved little weird toyetic console that was. And for some more backstory on just how strange maybe it was, we're going to turn to our in-game historian, the Megabuck, for a little bit of backstory on the Nintendo 64.
I will channel my inner Venny.
He's going to do the sunglasses, my man. Hell yeah.
Cue the music.
Available for your home in 1995.
Oh, damn.
Only on Nintendo Ultra 64.
Ultra 64.
Wait, what did he call it?
Yes.
The Ultra 64.
64.
That's not what it fucking says on this little emblem right here.
What happened, Buck? What happened?
Yeah.
Cue record scratch.
You're probably wondering how we got here with this N64 name.
The Nintendo 64, developed and released in not 1995. You see, the Nintendo 64, codenamed Project Reality, and early named as the Ultra 64.
That's very bold.
Yeah.
That
Project
is-
Reality. Come on, Nintendo. It's high, setting the bar pretty high. Right? Sorry.
The Nintendo 64 was not actually released until 1996, though the hardware was finished. This beautiful baby right here, with its 4 controller ports,
4-port masterpiece.
power button on the top here, and reset button that they still insisted on putting on consoles so long as we had, well, not even cartridges, because didn't the PlayStation have a reset button also?
It just looked so sexy. Ugh.
This hardware was completed in 1995, but the games weren't ready. So the Nintendo 64 only launched with 2 titles, Super Mario 64 and Pilot Wings 64. Some others came shortly after, Turok, Shadows of the Empire, Blast Corps, a couple of those other not too long afterwards there too. But it didn't really matter because those 2 titles, especially Mario, were enough to just skyrocket this thing to the top of the everything.
Mario 64 was mind-blowingly
Absolutely.
good when it hit the streets. I can't express that enough. It's a you had to be there kind of thing.
Well,
just-
honestly,
It blew our minds.
you know why that game felt so fucking good to play is because the developers for Mario 64 spent just an entire year literally just programming Mario's movement. Like, they just had a flat environment and they spent 1 year developing just the movement in that game so that it felt good.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it delayed
it
the entire
shows.
console.
Yeah, no,
Delayed
it really
the
did.
entire
Yeah, you're
console
right.
because
Yeah.
they wanted it to be completely right,
Really?
right?
They wanted it to be
Fine with
perfect.
me.
Yeah, exactly.
In the first 3 days on market in the US, they had shipped 500,000 units. 350,000 of them sold in the first 3 days. By the end of the first year, it had sold 3.6 million units. As of December, let me see, they kept going until about a year after the GameCube came out. It had yielded a lifetime total of 5.5 million systems in Japan, almost 21 million in the Americas, and almost 7 million in other regions for a total of 32.9 million units.
Damn, what a
Go,
juggernaut.
baby.
64 sold.
Oh,
Now, this is Nintendo, and if you'll remember a little company called Apple around this time period, we were all excited for colors.
Uh-huh.
So we got
Oh,
colors.
right. Yes,
We
yes,
got
yes.
the fantastic series of colors, both in our consoles and in our controllers, all different colors. The N64 came in charcoal gray, smoke gray, jungle green, ice blue, fire orange, watermelon red, grape purple, and the elusive Toys R Us exclusive gold.
Oh,
See,
my.
that alone is enough. That's just like PlayStation don't do that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
PlayStation don't come in colors. It's got CD, and so
We
like
loved-
it's got the
we
good
loved
audio
our-
and the whatever. But does it come in bubblegum flavor? Like I love Nintendo. They're so silly.
That's
Yeah.
because the N64 was marketed more towards kids and the PlayStation was marketed more towards teens and adults.
That makes
I think
sense.
that
It's
was
true.
completely on purpose.
And
So
in the mid to late 90s, we all loved our semi-transparent colored, like color
Absolutely.
see-through tech.
iMacs
We
and
loved it.
Apple iMac. I remember the iMac, the Apple iMac that you had in
phones,
your
yeah.
room, Mac, that was
Yeah,
like
with the
clear
handle.
and blue.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
The see-through VMUs, the Sega
Yeah.
colored VMUs. Yeah.
So Nintendo, if you guys didn't know, was pretty famous for putting expansion ports on all of their consoles. The Nintendo had some that went unused. Well, it
Really?
went unused in the States. The Super Nintendo that had some that went unused in the States because they had Satellaview in Japan. And the N64 was no different. Most notably, that all of you probably know about is the expansion pack that you needed to play. I mean, you didn't need, but you needed to play a lot of games
lot
like
of
Donkey Kong
games.
64, Perfect Dark, some of those. There were a couple, I think, that it was required, but the resolutions and everything else looked a lot better in games like that. Banjo-Kazooie, if you had that expansion port in there, so they found a way to sell that to us.
Is it question? Is it
yes.
just extra RAM space?
Yeah.
Is that all it is?
Yeah, it's literally just extra RAM. Yeah.
That's all.
It's a
Okay.
RAM stick, yeah.
And then on the bottom here, which we did not get in the States, this expansion port was utilized in, well, they have them, but in Japan that came out, the
Wait.
N64 disk drive.
Wait,
Disk
why
was
drive,
utilized
yeah.
in
He
Japan.
said, "Wait, what?" That's where the disk drive port is.
The N64
Okay.
disk drive is kind of like the Sega CD. It plops onto the bottom of your N64.
Oh shit! It does that for
They all got 'em.
You never- Your N64 is a girl, Raph. Congratulations.
Yeah.
I'm so
And
happy.
So they released only a handful of games for that also over in Japan with that little expansion on the bottom, like the Mario Paint Artist game. They released another Mario Paint. If you didn't know that or not, they
Ooh,
released
I
a
didn't
series.
know that.
For
Really?
N64. Yeah. They also released a
Whoa.
game called Doshin the Giant, which was interesting, and they released expansion levels and I think a level editor for F-Zero for the N64. So
Whoa.
they had the
Wow.
disk drive.
And
No
we touched on the
way.
disk drive a little bit when on our Sony episode, right? Because that drama ties in with Final Fantasy VII and the
Dang.
development of CDs.
Exactly.
Why this console exists because of that deal falling through and Nintendo deciding to go with cartridges. This actually marks the last time that Nintendo used ROM-based cartridges for any of their consoles. You know, they didn't do back to cartridges at all until the Switch, and
Right.
that's actually a RAM stick, so that's a different type of technology. Last time they actually used
Or
carts
the new ones
themselves.
are they little flash drives? Is that
Right,
what
basically.
a Switch
yeah.
card is
Yeah.
basically?
SD cards.
An SD
basically.
card, yeah.
Whereas
SD
these had
card,
actual
yeah.
like pinouts and electronic printed circuit
Right.
boards and
Because after
Um,
this, they go to the GameCube and you get an
The mini
equally
discs,
fun
yeah.
and stupid the mini disc.
Yeah.
right.
Uh,
So we can't talk about the Nintendo 64 without talking about this thing.
I'm so glad
I
that you
was-
said
I
that,
was
because I was like, we
waiting
have
for
to talk about the
this.
controller,
the
right?
controller.
Yes, yeah.
So okay, is it a Trident? Is it
Old
this was
Lego.
brought up to me today in my
Hands up.
research. Never even
Hands
thought
up
about
if
this.
you like it.
Wait, what?
Nobody
I'm sorry.
raised their hands.
Say that
What?
again?
Say again?
He said
Is that
hands
what
up
he
if
said?
you like it.
Hands up if you like
Hands up
it.
if you like the
Okay.
And none of us raised our hands.
Nobody raised their hands.
Literally in research today, someone said, "Oh no, it's an M," and I went, "Oh my god, I never even thought that it was."
Oh my goodness.
Oh shit!
You
that
got to
makes
be
sense,
kidding me.
yeah.
But more importantly, though, besides the things that we don't like about it, let's talk about the things that were really great game changers that this brought to it, and that is this port on the back here, letting you put your memory card inside of the slot. If I can put it in the right way, right, putting your memory
Mhm.
card in that slot, bringing the Rumble feature to it when them and Sony got into a giant argument about, and Sony released the DualShock controllers that had the Rumble features in them. Nintendo being able to add this.
You got
And
the
more
other one?
importantly, too, I don't have
Yeah.
one here, but the Game Boy Transfer pack that you could plug into this, so you could play your Game Boy
Well, look at
Pokemon in
That's
Pokemon
right.
Stadium. There you go.
Yeah,
Raph's
there
got
you
one.
go.
Perfect, bud.
Yeah.
That you plug into your controller and whatever other monstrosity he has that plugged into.
That goes right up on the top
into
of
it,
Yeah, that's
which
a Rumble pack. It's like
The
a Rumble pack
Dreamcast
that
would
goes
end
with
up
that,
copying with double slots to put the VMU and Rumble packs and other things
Yeah.
into as well, too, right? 4 ports on the console itself was a game changer.
Absolutely.
That's crazy.
Game
Yeah.
4-player
breaking,
games without.
Blew my
I
mind.
used to make me and my buddy Ben used to have this conversation about games and how games with peripherals usually failed. Aside from maybe light gun games, if it required some type of funny peripheral to play right, like a fishing rod or something else like that, the game was dead in the water.
yeah.
Or a
Right.
pair of
And
bongo
that-
drums, if you will.
Yeah, exactly. And so the same goes, I think, for like 4-player multiplayer games on like the PlayStation, because you had to buy a multi-tap, which didn't mean you couldn't. It meant that the developers had to keep that in mind.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they would design the game more towards 2-player play,
Good
and then
point.
4-player play was an afterthought. Whereas Nintendo 64 developers, Gauntlet Legends, all the good wrestling games,
Yeah.
they knew that you could play with 3 friends, right? You
Yeah.
and 3 friends could play.
That's a good
Of
point.
course, that's Super
Right.
Smash Brothers.
So I have
So did
one
I.
very important question for you guys about this controller.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
How do you wrap your wire? Are you an over the shoulder guy? Are you a bandolier guy?
I haven't had to wrap
Yeah,
an
I was a
N64
bandolier guy.
controller.
Or do you do the crisscross?
That was me, the crisscross.
Yes. And Raph is correct. The only correct answer is the crisscross.
The only correct
It's
I
the
answer.
best.
was
the best.
I was a bandolier guy.
The best way to wrap your controller is the crisscross.
Really?
Honestly, most of the time I had them
Personal
plugged
preference,
in and
huh?
ready to play, so
Yeah.
I hardly ever wrapped
And the
them.
That's a good
N64,
one.
that controller predates the PlayStation's analog stick, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Ooh, I did not check the date. Yeah, I believe
I believe
so.
by
They
like
did
a
not check
year
the
or
dates on
two.
that, because you have to remember, kids, the original PlayStation 1 controller was digital only. It did
Right.
not have twin analog sticks. It just had
Precisely.
a D-pad. That was
Correct.
released later on too.
So
They-
N64 gets that right, but then they put it in the wrong spot.
well, you
Whoops.
have to you have to also remember too that this console really it's kind of like the whole Sega Nintendo thing. So many people say it's Sega versus Nintendo. I mean, Sega versus Super Nintendo, and the Sega was designed to compete with the NES, not the Super Nintendo. Whereas
Right.
this, though the PlayStation was already out, this was really more a competitor for the Saturn.
Wow, really? Interesting.
Yeah. Because that could, life cycle wise, 5th generation
He
console.
makes a good point. Yeah.
And it just lasted long enough to do battle with both.
The funny thing is, though, it's like you talk about how long they made PS2s for. When I talked about that in our episode,
Right.
this got discontinued less than a year after the GameCube came out. So we were like, we're
Aye.
done.
Well,
It's good. We had enough.
you know, we had a. I'm sorry. Before I was gonna say we had a. You know, we always do a little bit of discussing before our carousel episodes about what games we're gonna pick, and that what you just said reminded me that the quantity of games for the N64 is not that large. Buck,
No.
I don't know how many N64 games you might have
Right.
some sort of knowledge of this.
I was gonna say I
at,
can
at
probably
your, at
well,
your
my-
sleeve much faster than us.
I was gonna say
Maybe
I can
a
look at
couple
Retro's
hundred?
inventory, but that includes imports. No, there's only 388 official releases for the N64. It has
Yeah,
a
very
very
small
small library.
Tiny, tiny.
To give you a
tiny.
comparison, the Sega CD has like 160 titles in its library.
Good
Wow.
grief.
So the N64 has barely over double that, and we're talking a very successful console. Whereas, as much as I love my Sega CD, a not very successful console.
Yeah. And so yeah, when we were having this discussion about who's gonna cover what, it was really like we were like, all right, it's almost like there are 5 games maybe for or 4 games for the N64 that are absolutely some of the best games of all time. And so who wants each one? You know what I mean?
You know what's funny is it's your
We had to
rule
really
of
divvy them up carefully.
Yeah.
it's your rule of 7s. Like every once in a while, I want a good 7. The N64 doesn't really have any. It has like
Ah.
39 out of 10, 10 out of 10 bangers,
Yeah.
and like
And then a
300
bunch of
Astros bowling and
Yeah.
fucking Glover and
Yeah.
like Glover's okay, but it's not.
It's true. Glover's okay. But no, that's true. Yeah. So I
Iggy's
don't know.
wrecking balls.
It's got
It's
some
interesting-
hidden gems in there too, honestly.
Say again.
It's got some hidden gems in there
But
too. Like
that's what I'm
games-
getting at.
Just
There's
not
some
as many, you know.
yes, there's
mean,
some
let's get into it
amazing
then.
games.
You had shit like
Yeah.
Winback that like I feel like nobody ever heard about that game, but it had a lot of innovative stuff in it that
Sure.
actually ended up in like Metal Gear Solid later and stuff like that.
But
Like,
the
yeah,
complete
it's got-
package isn't there. So
Yeah,
it's
right,
like
right.
Mission Impossible for the N64. My buddy Brad absolutely loves that game. It's not that great. It's
Right.
no GoldenEye. It's not that
Yeah.
great.
So, without any further ado, why don't we just go ahead and get into our carousel?
Yeah, let's do it.
I will begin. I will start us off with my top 5 favorite games for the N64 growing up, we had an N64 the year it came out. I believe we got it, and
yeah, this N64, not just
wow.
N64.
Man, watching Buck play Mario 64 blew my fucking mind. So much GoldenEye being played, but like Buck said, this system was kind of geared towards children. So you'll see that my list, just like my other carousel lists, is often influenced very heavily by what I was exposed to as a child.
Mhm.
So coming in at number 5 is the 1997 rare classic to me, not Donkey Kong or Donkey Kong 64, but Blast Corps.
Ooh.
We talked about
Yeah,
this
I
game
love that
once
game.
before
Interesting
because
segues.
Buck brought it as a retro zone, and I was excited to see it then. And I was like, I'm gonna re-mention it now. I won't
Cool.
spend too much time on it because honestly, I was never able to beat it as a kid. But
Ooh,
the
beat it. I don't know if I
Time
beat
to
it.
get moving.
the brief
Time.
whoa
Time.
brain blast.
Time.
The brief synopsis of what the game is it's a destruction game where you use a bunch of like both real and fictional demolition vehicles to just like blow stuff up. So it reminded me of a kid of another game that my brother had, which was Rampage for the Nintendo.
Oh, okay.
Where the objective was just like destroy all the buildings, and I was like, that's easy for me to understand as a child. Like, you know what I mean? The problem was that just like some of the vehicles required some critical thinking skills as to like what path to take. But some of the fictional vehicles were awesome. There was a guy with a jetpack that would just do like a butt slam, and there was like a vehicle that just had like walls that it would push out on either
Yeah.
side to like
Mhm.
crush the buildings on the left or right of you. It was, I don't know. As a kid, I liked seeing all the explosions. I thought the fictional vehicles were cool, and it was easy for me to understand how to play. So I would just pop it in and try. And Buck unlocked everything. So I was just like, I'm going to beat this guy. It was like, you know what?
His favorite game.
It's like
Now be that guy.
Yeah, it's like Pilot Wings, but with violence. All right, coming in at number 4. That's all I have to say about Blast Corps for now. But coming in at number 4 is a HAL Labs game from 1999. The makers of Super Smash Brothers. No, I'm not taking Super Smash Brothers. I'm getting into my childhood loves now with Pokemon Stadium.
Ooh.
Hell
Yay.
yeah. Rock and roll.
Awesome.
I
dude.
loved Pokemon. I got Red and Blue when I was a kid. I remember, and I played Red. Buck played Blue. I don't know what happened to our copy of Blue. I swear to God, Buck lost it. It was crazy. But ever since I was, what is this, 97?
Went after
Pokemon
college,
comes
traded
out.
it in for beer money.
It was one of the first. No, you were in high school for sure at this point. But it was the first game that taught me the lesson of you better save your game before you turn it off. Whoops.
Oh, no.
Ooh, I caught a bunch of
Oh,
Pokemon,
man.
didn't save, and then went, oh, Mom, all my Pokemon are gone. Pokemon.
I'm sorry, you're dumb, honey.
I know. Pokemon Stadium was awesome because it was, besides Pokemon Snap, the first, like, we got to see 3D battling. So I had been
Yeah.
seeing a bunch of really, I think I've said this before because we've
It was a
talked about
big deal.
Pokemon Stadium before, but the 2D sprites for Pokemon in Red and Blue are pretty fucking ugly. Most of them are, if you go
Yeah.
back and look at them. So seeing them render it in full 3D was really, really cool. Importing my Pokemon using that thing that Raph showed us just earlier was
That's funny.
like the best. Having your friend come over and import his Pokemon, and then you import your Pokemon, and so you don't need to do the stupid link cable and look at the ugly graphics. Instead, you get these awesome, all the moves have full-blown animations,
the
Gengar
music, yeah.
jumping up in
Yeah.
the air and blasting things.
Yeah.
And then finally, the mini games we covered. I don't remember when we covered it, but we've definitely covered this before. The mini games in Pokemon Stadium were really fun, especially for child me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm looking for short experiences that I can play when my friends come over. So
Yeah.
Pokemon Stadium, really badass. But above that, at number 3, same year, same publisher or producer, or direct, whatever, HAL Labs makes Pokemon Snap.
Oh, I didn't
And
know
that
they
is
made that.
technically the first game with all 151 Pokemon in 3D model form.
Oof.
And if you saw our Game of the Year episode, you know that I gushed about enjoying games that show me something where I was like, I never seen this before. And Pokemon Snap is a rail shooter that's you taking pictures of Pokemon. And I was just like, what the fuck is this? Even as a child, I was just like, oh, I don't know. It was like I grew up in Disney World basically because I live here in
You live in
Orlando.
Orlando, yeah.
And so I was a lot of riding going on. And so then Pokemon Snap comes out and it's like, wait, so it's a bunch of dark rides. And then
Yeah.
I get to look around and all the
Yeah.
Pokemon are just kind of living in there. Like,
Basically, Seven Dwarves minecart ride, but with
True.
Pokemon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's a small world, but with Pokemon, and you're just spinning around and going, holy shit, look at
So
the
much
what?
better.
But so much better, yeah. It's the secret item interactions with the Pokemon and the levels to unlock different routes and to get them to do different things. I haven't played the remake because I just want to keep my memory for Pokemon Snap nice and safe in here in my mind when it was perfect.
Did you know that in Yakuza Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, there's also a Pokemon Sujimon Snap mini
Oh
game
my
on the
God, that's
trolleys? You take the
amazing.
trolleys around
That's
town.
right.
Shit, man.
I did not, and that's incredible. But yeah, this is an easy game for my child self to play, and it was just full of cool secrets and fun, and I really, really loved it. Coming in at number 2 on my carousel, Hudson Soft 2000. This is not the first of its game, but probably the best of its name on the N64, Mario Party 3.
Oh, nice.
So
Good
before
choice.
Jackbox, this was the premier party game. I'm sorry.
Kinda. When did the first Jackbox come out for the Mac?
It would be You Don't Know Jack,
Wow.
right? And it would be,
You are correct,
and it
sir.
would be
Ah,
on the
right.
Mac probably, but it was hard to play with your friends. You had to play
Yeah.
with a mouse and keyboard.
You
It
had to
was mostly
crowd
just a
around a
trivia
little
game.
keyboard game.
Yeah. So instead, the N64 has 4 controller ports. You got 3 friends or a brother and 1 friend each, and then you get to see all the cast of Mario in a form that you've never seen them, right? Because at this point, you've already seen 3D Mario. And then Nintendo says, what about 3D Donkey Kong? What about 3D Yoshi? What about 3D this? What about 3D that? And so the Mario Party series was played a lot as a house that had a brother, 2 brothers in it. But Mario Party 3 has, it's the last one for the N64. So it has the most levels, it's got the most characters, and it's got the most mini games. So if I have to give it to any one Mario Party, I'm just going to default to the third one. I remember playing it a lot and hurting my hand doing all of that rolling on that damn joystick.
Do you remember that they were trying to avoid a lawsuit so you could send away like your UPC and you could get a glove, a like Nintendo branded glove to wear to play Mario Party and do the little
I
stick
did
spin
not
things?
know that Nintendo was the one providing them.
Yes.
That is really funny.
That's the reason why after Mario Party 1, a lot of those mini games were removed because most of the mini games included that.
It would just absolutely break your
callous.
controller because you'd fucking grind down the edges of the octagonal box inside. But Mario Party 3, I put it at number 2 because it was just like super easy to play. And I just remember, I wrote in my notes that this was ironically the easiest game to play, but the most frustrating to lose as a subsequent effect. Because it was just like when you lost in the last turn because Buck landed on the stole your star fucking box, and he didn't even need to steal your star to win, but he did, and dropped you from third place to fourth place. Yeah, and you're just like, God damn it, Buck! Wow.
You said so many words just to say Mario Party.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
So, number 1 game on my console carousel. As I preface this whole thing, we definitely had to divide these up because we all love all of our number 1s, I'm going to assume. But I wanted to I wanted to take one that I could gush about the deepest and the hardest. And so I asked, please, may I have the 1998 Nintendo classic, The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time.
Hell yes.
Get it,
I
buddy.
get goosebumps just thinking about this game.
Oh.
It's
He won the arm wrestling contest to get this one.
So released 2 years after Super Mario 64 has paved the way for how 3D adventure games were going to be played. This game takes that and just blows it the fuck up. As a kid, I cannot explain the sense of Lord of the Rings level whimsical danger vibe that the opening menu screen of this game has. But when you press the thing in and then you turn it on and it comes up right away because it's a cartridge game and it's just...
Oh, I just got goosebumps.
And it's just the dawn of the... And you're like, what? Like, because everything you've seen of
I get
Zelda
goosebumps
before
too.
this is nothing
Yeah.
like that. And then... You press the A button. And I was just like, this is kind of scary because I'm a kid and this feels like I'm about to go on a legit adventure. Like,
And
with
then,
danger.
hey, listen!
I went,
Yeah.
"Aw." I won't even touch it. All right, so I like this game so much more than any top-down Zelda. That's
fair.
period.
That's
It's
fair,
just,
that's fair.
to me, it's so much more immersive from the over-the-shoulder perspective It really, like I said, it feels like you are a young boy / young man exploring this massive world, and you're facing these challenges that like far exceed your capabilities. Like you are fighting from the over shoulder perspective when you are fighting the Dodongo in the volcano. He is huge. He's so big. Like the top down Zeldas can have big sprites that take up a wide surface area, but it's not the same as like just like looking up at this thing and being like, God damn,
You're in
how
the
am I going to
space.
kill this thing? Yeah.
Yeah.
Carefully.
It's got amazing music, some of the best music in video game history.
Yeah.
And it's like it didn't. I don't think it invented most of those Zelda melodies, but it certainly perfected them.
I
And
believe Koji Kondo still did the music on that game too, and it was just him like perfecting his own melodies, right?
the Great Fairy Fountain
Yeah.
is just like, oh my
Yeah.
god, like just get out of here with how this music sounds.
No,
It's
really,
got-
Mom, don't walk in during the Great Fairy.
Right.
Get out, Mom. No, Mom,
No, Mom,
Yeah.
get out. Seriously.
Nothing. It's got amazing music. It's got great puzzles and level designs, like just as good as any other Zelda up to that point, but now 3D. Like it's got fantastic hidden secrets in it that like it's one of those games where it doesn't suffer from Nintendo Power syndrome. You can totally beat it without it, but if you do have Nintendo Power, then you're going to figure out how to get the Goron knife.
Right.
It's got great character designs that basically took a already solidified franchise and then just like solidified even more legacy character looks. Like Sheik is invented in this game. Like, and then it's just like she's canon now. Like she can be in every Zelda game now, and so many other objects from Ocarina of Time
I
do
think the
this.
modern look for Ganondorf comes from this game, right?
Yes,
True.
exactly. So it's a game that you can still pop into now, and no matter how many times you have played it, it will still probably be fun. So whether you have played it a million times, and hence you obviously enjoy running through it, it is a fantastic game for speed running and just like jumping through. If you haven't played it in a while, so now you get to play it with fresh eyes. Maybe you've forgotten some things and you get to have little doses of nostalgia as you remember how amazing it is. Or if you've never played it before and you get to be so pleasantly surprised by how unique and memorable the world and the characters that inhabit it are. If you've never played it, then you probably know that it's got Link in it. But what you don't know is all the little townspeople that have their own little mini side quests and they're like very good character designs, from the windmill guy to the zombie caretaker, like the chickens and the spiders, every like the guy that's half spider, half like little boy, like so many little things in there where you're just like, this is a lot of cute ass shit in this game. Yeah, so it's at the top of my list for sure. The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time.
Damn.
Yeah, Buck,
Good list. Good
Nice.
list.
would you like to commence your carousel?
I would. So for my top 5, like Max said, it was a little bit different for me because I was a teenager by then. So I was definitely a Mortal Kombat kid, getting into some more of the more violent video games, and so it definitely shows in some of these. But I was still a gamer at heart, so you'll see my list gets rounded out. Coming in at number 5 is Killer Instinct Gold.
You love this game.
For the
You fucking
N64.
love Killer Instinct.
It was Killer Instinct. I love the first one. I'll caveat: I enjoy Killer Instinct 1, the arcade version, better than Killer Instinct 2, the arcade version, because I just do. There's some changes and they took some characters out, but this game, but to have a fighting game on the N64, there were not many. There were not many that were good. You had like this Mortal Kombat trilogy. I don't really like Mortal Kombat 4 that much.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Mace the Darkness sucks.
This is
War Gods
far
kinda
and beyond
sucks.
much better than those.
What's that other one? Dual Destinies or whatever that one. They're none of them are. But more importantly, because of the layout of the N64 controller, you could very easily get a 6-button like Street Fighter / Killer Instinct layout,
good
which the
point.
PlayStation didn't have.
That's what I was
None of the
thinking
other
just now.
consoles had. They added shoulder buttons,
I didn't think about that.
which I was not very good at. I was
Shoulder
not good at
buttons?
I still am not good at shoulder buttons in fighting games. And so I
Really?
enjoyed that part a lot. I do remember at one point I had gotten so good at this that this has, you remember Street Fighter, the big deal was when they put out Street Fighter Turbo, which meant you could turn the speed up. The game went a little bit faster. It wasn't as sluggish. This had different speed settings, the highest of which was ludicrous.
Ludicrous speed.
Ludicrous speed. And I remember being able to play a Saberwolf on ludicrous speed and just rock people.
He barks every time he
Yeah.
fucking gets a hit.
Oh.
Yeah.
This was actually Killer Instinct Gold. And if you didn't know, the Xbox One has been around for a decade now. If you didn't know that, over that. There was a game released for the Xbox One called Rare Replay. And this was one of the games that was on that Rare Replay. So if you don't have N64 or you're not getting one of those cool new analog 3Ds and going to play the original, you can play on the Xbox as well, too. That Rare Replay has got some really cool stuff on it. Coming in at number 4, this gem of a game made by Treasure, published by Enix in 1997, the follow-up to Gunstar Heroes Mischief Makers.
Whoa, this is a follow-up to Gunstar Heroes.
This is the same company. Gunstar Heroes was the first game that
the
Treasure
models
made.
look the same. You know, you got these big chunky fists,
same
and
style.
the shooting and the platforming, and
It's this exact same
I
style
can't
with
believe
the
I never put that together.
type of shooting, the directional shooting of it at all, and everything else, the way this game plays. I didn't discover this game when it came out. I discovered it probably in college, probably about 4 or 5 years later after it came out. But it was like, holy crap! I had seen Gunstar Heroes, and that was always, I think one of my buddies had it, and I played it, and I was like, this just blew my mind. The bosses and whatnot kind of have those like the balls, put them together in a lot of cases, so they all have these joints going on, right? Which gave them lots of different like fluidity of movement in the fights and made it a lot more interesting. But it's funny to note that in 2009, when reviewing like all of the N64 games, Games Radar gave this the most underrated N64 game award,
Interesting.
kind of flying under that radar.
It's one of those games where I would see the box art at Blockbuster all the time and be like, I don't know, Mischief Makers? Why would I like? What is this?
Right.
I've never even heard of this.
Yeah, this is the first game they made for Nintendo console, and it's funny because they started developing it for a prototype new console because Nintendo is keeping a lot of stuff under wraps. In fact, I even read in some of my research that the guys at LucasArts, when they were working on all the games that they made for the N64, Nintendo wanted them to keep that controller so much of a secret that they had to keep it wrapped up in a cardboard box.
Wow.
And like keep it hidden
and funny.
when they weren't using it so that it wouldn't get out to the public. Number 3, this was my mystery game. That's might blow all of you guys away.
Okay.
But I absolutely love this game. It actually almost nothing could beat my number 1, but this almost beat my number 2. And that is Doom 64.
Okay, all
There we
right.
go.
Nice, dude.
If none of you guys played this version of Doom, one of the things that really made this all click for me when I was looking back at the research of it, not just playing it, because I was like, I love this game. I don't know why. I do like Doom, but why is this Doom so much better than the others? I love this Doom so much. I bought it again when it came out on the Switch.
Nice.
This Doom
64 Switch.
Who makes Doom? Raph?
Id? What was it?
Not this one.
No. Okay.
This was made by Midway.
Oh,
What?
interesting. Holy
This Doom
shit.
was made by Midway with id overseeing the development of it. They
Cool.
made a customized Doom engine for it. This was technically the 4th Doom game. It came out after Final Doom. And if you play it, you notice quite a few things. The animations are smoother. The textures are better. The sound quality is better. But more importantly than anything else, this game achieves that level of like horror aesthetic that Doom kind of inherently would bring, but after a level or two it wore off. This game kept it going like the whole time. Like it really leaned into the whole these things are from hell, you know, kind of thing. And the way they design the levels and the layout and the, you know, I won't call it story, but you know what I mean. You progressively find things out. I loved it.
Yeah.
And
N64 looks great.
because of the way Doom played already on the PC, it was one of the very few games that the N64 controller worked okay with it, because you didn't need to look up and down. You didn't.
Right.
You didn't have necessarily. I think this
Good
one might
point,
be able to.
yeah.
Did that one
But if
use
you
the
look-
analog stick or did it use the D-pad?
I think you
'Cause
could use both actually. They would do that C-stick thing a lot
Right.
in shooters, like
Right.
Turok. That was my biggest
Yeah.
gripe always
Yeah.
about Turok. Also,
Yeah.
Number 2.
Hell yeah. Someone had to do it. 1998 Game of the Year.
GoldenEye. Okay, raise your hand if, as a child, you ever watched a James Bond movie.
I've seen all
Not
of
as a
them.
child.
No. As a child.
Yeah, yeah,
As a
yeah.
When
child,
you were
I've seen
10,
all of
how many
them.
James Bond movies had you seen?
Right.
A lot
0.
of them. My brother-in-law was really,
One,
really
two.
into James Bond, so he had the collection. So I'd actually like was a big fan of James
Point
Bond
being,
when this movie came out.
In 1996-ish, when this came out, in
Bronson is
97.
the only one I'd even heard of. Being
This was Pierce
007.
Brosnan, right?
Yeah.
90 and frickin' Sean Connery was a Bond, right? But I didn't learn that till I was a little bit older. My point was, in 1997, unless you were in your 40s or older, you didn't really give much of a shit about James
Fair
Bond.
enough.
Agreed.
I was a weird
So
child.
in comes a James Bond game for the N64, not even close to the first James Bond game for any of the consoles to come out.
Right.
But for some flippin' reason, this game is just a masterpiece. I mean,
Mhm.
Yeah.
the single player in it is just so. I think it might boil down to how good the level design is
Right.
of this game, and maybe that. And I know Raph had talked about before how the multiplayer was kind of last minute squeezed in there,
Right.
but the game was already so close to perfect that they didn't have to do a lot of tweaking for the multiplayer to do. Yeah, Odd Job's broken. We all know that. But other than that,
I mean,
it's
there's
pretty,
a couple of other people that are also
pretty
broken.
good
It's
for
not
the
that
most
broken.
part. This was like the king of like put up cardboard boxes and play split screen against your friends. Right?
Yeah. I
Stuff's
mean,
green
it was,
looking.
it was the first console shooter that was any good, in my opinion.
Both the
I
single player
mean,
and the multiplayer.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's fair.
I mean, the levels in Doom were always just like kill the monsters and open doors. At least in 007, there was like a plant explosives on these things and then run away. And it was like, oh, whoa, it's like actual instructions that I'm receiving to do. Like the first time, it sounds stupid to say it now, but really, like when we were kids, like games, if they had a mission, they weren't this
It was
involved.
get to the end of the level and that's
No,
it.
let's
Like,
get to
this
the
is
end.
one that had mission objectives.
Kill this
and it
guy
had-
or something.
It had optional mission objectives too, depending on the
Yeah.
difficulty that you were playing. If you were playing
Right.
Double Agent, you had to do extra crazy shit.
Yeah, and when you had to start to use things like the remote mines and whatnot with
Yeah.
your watch, and really try to figure that out and actually use them, like that became, it's like it had strategy too. Like it's a
Yeah.
it's a shooting game. I don't give two shits about this. No, I care about this.
Yep.
The pause music. I just have a lot of really, really good memories of this one. And just to show you how much it impacts people, if you watch, I believe it was a Jimmy Fallon sketch like 5 or 6 years ago. He had Pierce Brosnan on as a guest. And he's like, I just want one thing. If you can do me one thing before you leave, yeah, play me one round in GoldenEye.
Wow,
And
that's
there's a
funny.
sketch, and it's him. Pierce Brosnan doesn't know. I mean, he knows this exists,
yeah,
but he
yeah,
doesn't
yeah.
fucking know. So he get then Pierce doesn't know what he's doing, and of course Jimmy kills him, and he's just like, yeah, childhood
awesome.
dream unlocked kind of thing. But
That's a good
That's-
number two. Only
that's a
because
ma-
I know
Very
what
good
your
number
number
two. I'm
one's about
curious
to
to
be.
see where your
yeah,
number
right.
two
Yeah, it's not for right. But Doom did almost beat this for me just because that Doom is so freaking good. It's the multiplayer in this that probably put it over the top. For
Precisely.
me,
No
because the
multiplayer in Doom.
You know, it's funny, Mac. You said like this was like probably the best, console shooter up until this point, and I think you might be right because before that you had Doom on like the Super Nintendo, and that port is like notoriously kind of bad.
For a boomer shooter, as you
Right.
guys call it now, it's really not that bad, but it's bad in comparison
Right,
if you had a
compared to
PC.
it's
Yeah.
PC version exactly. Yeah,
Yeah,
the SNES one was very slow and buggy.
But it's actually not that bad.
Yeah.
So
Ooh,
if
yeah.
Mac won the arm wrestling contest, I won the push-up contest because my number one is Super Mario 64.
Excellent.
Oh,
choice.
baby.
Yep.
Excellent choice.
Ugh.
Because this
The
game may
ultimate, the goat.
it may
goat.
very well be perfect game. It may very well be perfect game, and I think, I'm speechless. I have a million things I can
Wow.
say about how
That's
perfect this
rare
game is,
for
but
Buck.
Guys, he's tearing up. Oh my god.
I made notes and I looked at notes and everything else, but it's like I don't need to look at notes. I mean, obviously Miyamoto conceiving, his first real 3D version of Mario, Virtual Boy doesn't count. And the camera system is probably the biggest thing. I think we've discussed it before, but the camera system in this game is what makes it so amazing. Like they played their own game to know how to make it feel so great to us. Koji Kondo did the music for this again as well too, and he pumped the crap out of the chips in that. He didn't need a CD system to get what he Dire Docks and some of the amazing
Yeah, that's true. I forgot about some of the badass water music in this game.
music that he got out of this. Yeah, one of the only games where I'm not terrified of the water levels.
You're not? Because
I'm about to say, are you
Not-
sure about that?
Yeah.
With the
Not in
giant
this one.
worm in there?
I'm not either.
Not in this one. This is like the only game with water levels I can think of where I do not hate and I am not terrified by the water levels.
Man, that
And-
eel,
and I-
though.
I loved
yeah,
every
say the giant eel in the water levels.
Yeah.
That scared the
for
shit
some
out of
reason
me.
doesn't I think it's because of the blocky design. It doesn't really bother me. It was really the way that they really made use of the analog stick in this,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
It's
Traversal
really how
felt
they
good.
developed it. And if you remember that it was pressure sensitive, so if you barely pushed it a little bit,
He'd just walk a
Mario
little
just
bit.
kind of
More
walk and he
slowly,
could
yeah.
go a little bit more, and then he'd turn off into a run. It's the kind of game that I know I played it 100 times, and I could play it 100 more. I mean, there's plenty of games now that have, a camera just as good or controls just as good, or those pieces of the puzzle, and that maybe are almost as good with all the other things. But for when this came out and what it was leaps and bounds above anything else 3D that was
It's true.
coming out. You look at some of the 3D shit on PlayStation, and you look at this and be like,
And it remains like pretty much the best platformer for the N64 throughout the entirety of its life. Sorry,
Yeah.
Banjo-Kazooie. I'm not like Donkey Kong, like 64. No, it's just not as good as Mario 64. It's the best platformer
Right.
that they've got on
Right.
the whole system. Very good. I'd love to relish in it
Wow.
longer, but we're running way over time, and I believe Mr. Venacor is going to have to go back to work soon. All right, Raph, go ahead and hit us with your console carousel, please, sir.
Okay, well, I'm going to start it off with number 5, which is the game that, in my opinion, took everything that GoldenEye did and kind of perfected it and made it its own IP and everything, and that's Perfect Dark.
Perfected
good.
it.
Yeah, I honestly
it?
think it really did. It took everything that GoldenEye did and kind of just made it, I don't know, just a little bit smoother, a little bit more sci-fi and cool. It's got
including requiring more hardware.
Yes, it actually did
Yeah.
require an expansion pack, which is funny because it didn't come with one. I think the only game that actually came with an expansion pack is Donkey Kong 64,
Yes.
which was
Mhm.
actually kind of a whatever game, but whatever. But yeah, Perfect Dark, fun
fired.
ass, first person shooter that I got to play a lot at my friend's house. I never actually owned it myself, but I got to play it quite a bit there.
Mm.
I won't linger on it too long. I actually won't linger on my bottom 3 really. I want to get
It's a
to my
good
number
idea.
1. Harvest Moon 64 is my number 4. I know that
Wow.
seems a little odd, but Harvest Moon 64 was probably the last good Harvest Moon game. Everything after that I've heard is kind of not great. And honestly, Harvest Moon 64, it's really more nostalgia goggles for me. I loved,
It's a good choice.
setting up my farm, like just the vibes of this game felt very cozy and comfy.
I like how Raph's firing shots all over the place. Donkey Kong 64, not that great. And Harvest
I mean,
Moon
I'm
64,
sorry.
last
I
one,
agree.
Donkey
I
Kong
agree
64.
with things, yeah.
Donkey
Raph,
Kong
I didn't
64 was overloaded. I'm done.
Yeah.
I didn't
But
think
whatever.
Donkey Kong 64 was that good either. So
Yeah,
you're
no,
not
it
alone.
really wasn't.
Okay.
My number 3 was actually Banjo-Kazooie, another collectathon mascot platformer that I think was just a lot of fun, man. Like the vibes of this game are cool. The environments look really nice and lush.
Mhm.
Rare knocked it out of the park with this game, as they did with most of the games that they developed for the N64.
Ooh.
Rare was like Nintendo's powerhouse up until they got bought out by Microsoft, but whatever.
And then they just made Mii's.
Yeah, right, exactly. Banjo-Kazooie, my number 3, fun-ass platformer, good game. My number 2 is, and my number 1 and 2, I actually have physicals of them right here, and I love this one because it's got a green cartridge, and that's Rayman 2. the
Yeah,
greatest game.
Rayman
Ah.
2, man.
Interesting one to pick.
Dude.
I never played this.
Interesting.
No, never
I
played.
like
Okay,
it.
2 was
I-
a sleeper hit.
It is.
Okay.
It's actually a really fun,
It's good.
another kind of action platformer. But like Rayman, he had this cool fist, and he had these
Mhm.
energy balls that he could shoot
Mhm.
out, and it had a pretty dark and kind of mature sort of story too. It's like an enslaved race of amphibians that you're kind of freeing. It's crazy. It's a really great game. The boss fights were all really wild, a little hard. I'm not gonna lie. For an N64 game, this is actually a fairly difficult one. But Rayman 2, man, it's my number 2, and yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's nostalgia goggles, but I fucking love this game.
That's nostalgia goggles are okay.
Yeah. And actually, I've heard this game has a pretty good reception, other than my own personal love of it, but I'm not the only fan. My number one is probably my most played game on the N64, and I think it's funny because we did kind of discuss all this and sort of like pick and choose who's kind of getting what, sort of, just so you guys have like a nice diverse array of games to look at and hear us talk about. But this one coincidentally really is genuinely my favorite game on the N64, and that's Star Fox 64.
I
Yeah.
was gonna take this one if not Ocarina of Time.
Best,
I was gonna
best
take this
Star
one and
Fox
not.
game. Best Star
Best
Fox
Star
game.
Fox game out
Hands
of
down.
like honestly, hands down for sure. This
and
game
comes with
felt,
a Rumble Pack, baby.
It did come with the Rumble Pack. That's the one that I got over there.
Such
This
a big
game
deal.
felt both cinematic and arcadey at the same time in this really
Ooh.
satisfying and very comfortable sort of way. You could beat it in a couple of hours, and I would often do this. Like I would just pop this game in, play it from beginning to end. It's just that epic intro throws you right into the war against
Yeah.
Andros. Just throws you right in. It's like crisis mode. You guys are flying into Corneria to stop the invasion. It's so fucking cool.
Man,
And you gotta
that
remind you
first
that.
level, Raph.
Oh, dude, yeah.
Yeah.
And then that first level, I think, has two potential routes that you can
Routes.
take with the boss fight, which
Yes.
is really cool. That's another thing about this game is
Introduce
how
that right
many
away.
branching pathways that you could take, and there's two endings too.
The
There's
original
two-
Star Fox had some branching, some hidden stuff as well too.
I
but
believe so.
64
Yeah. This one
They-
really is just a remake, kind of like the first Star Fox, but like made to look much nicer and play much better.
This one holds up
Yeah.
so much better to the test
Absolutely.
of time, though. You can go back and
Yeah.
play 64 and be like, well, what the fuck, this is still good.
Yeah, dude, this
Yeah.
has some like really iconic shit from it that first and foremost, the Star Wolf fights. The fights where you're fighting Star Wolf and you guys, oh man, I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it right now. Yeah, just taking them out one by one, and it's just, man, it felt so good to have like an adversary to fight, like in an arena style, flight game.
Yep.
What's the that flying saucer level where like it's like a la Independence Day, you're fighting off a giant flying saucer that's dropping a bunch of other ships and you're fighting them, and then you gotta blow up the flying saucer, it falls on, oh my god, great
Yeah.
fucking level.
The tank
Where
level.
is my creator? That's
Yeah.
like one of my favorite lines in this game. That fucking robot that you fight that's obsessed with finding its like creator, like it's having an existential crisis. Dude,
Yeah,
I
he's
don't know,
right.
man. It's just, and it's got a cool story too that you can choose to kind of not really pay attention to. It's simple enough, and it's just there. Man, I love Star Fox
Yep.
64.
It's one
I
of
can't
the
even
best.
gush about it.
One of my favorite all-time 64s for sure.
And-
One you could still play.
The multiplayer too, like you had
Oh my god,
the
I
flying
forgot.
multiplayer, the tank multiplayer, and you had a mode where you could play on foot, which was like the first time that you ever really got
I
to do that in a
forgot
Star
about
Fox
that.
game. Yeah, you have the rocket launchers.
Yes.
Great game. That's my
That
number
is
one.
definitely worthy of a number one standing for me.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Fantastic. Very,
Well done.
very good list, crescendoing with one of the greatest N64 games and one of my favorite games. Mr. Venicor, go ahead and present to us your carousel list, please.
I will take us home. Let's rock and roll. The first one is highly awesome and controversial at the same time because this game was able to leach itself into our young impressionable teenage minds and have us all go, ooh, there's bad stuff in this game. That's Conker's Bad Fur Day.
Oh, I
Okay,
knew
very
it.
good.
I am the great mighty,
Mighty
Pooh.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. So if you've never heard the Great Mighty Pooh song, just stop the episode, YouTube it right now, and come back. Conker's Bad Fur Day was a very bold game because there was cursing, there was mature subject matter in every cell of this game, just through the DNA, all packaged in like a cutesy little squirrel package. And you know what? What's really cool is actually it was a good game. It was a good game that talked about boobs and talked about poop and talked about all the sort of things that young teenage boys and young
Everything that
preteens think is funny.
14-year-old me
That
wanted.
nobody else thinks is funny.
And that no other N64 game had in it.
Right, exactly.
Not even close.
Didn't
I
this game
mean,
start with you with like a hangover?
yeah,
Yes.
Yes.
it did.
Yeah.
Yeah, it did. I mean, just mature
The
subject
game-
matter
The
throughout.
promo
every...
GameStop shirt at the time, I have one. I'll wear it on a future episode. Is Conker passed out face first in a toilet, and the little caption says, "Shh, Conker's taking a nap."
I used to have that shirt.
That's very good.
I still have it.
I used to have that shirt, I
And it's a
worked at
perfectly
GameStop at
serviceable
the time.
platformer as well.
Yeah. It's actually a good game. I mean,
Yeah.
all kidding
Yeah.
aside, it actually is a fun game. Holds up pretty well, even today, in my opinion. Number 4, Wave Race. Dun, 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 dun,
I love this
Okay.
game. I love this game.
Yeah,
I'm so glad
we've
we
talked
played it this
about
year.
Wave Race in the past. I mean, it's just
We had a whole
it's
episode about it.
Yeah.
yeah, it's true. It's a darling. It really showed you that you could have a racing game without a track, and you could do tricks. I mean, the warm up level between all the levels with the dolphins chasing you and stuff. I mean, it was just a beautiful game, a great racer, and it gave us those water physics that we've never had before, especially in a racing game. Like for the first time ever, you were working with these water physics, and it felt really good. The
Yeah.
controls were key, the physics were key, and we had never gotten that before in any game, and that's I think what made Wave Race pretty special is the controls and physics, and it made you really feel like, because I'm from a part of Florida where water sports are like paramount. I'm back in Destin. I grew up on wave runners and jet skis, and I got to tell you, it felt totally realistic from day one, and it felt really really good to play.
It's true.
Uh,
Go see our episode for more information on that.
yeah, absolutely. Moving on to number 3.
Oh yes, I forgot. This is
Star
your
Wars
pick.
Shadows of the Empire,
Hell
baby.
yeah.
Hell yeah.
Good job.
This
My
was
boy
a
Dash
wonderful
Rendar.
This was a wonderful game, and probably the only time, unless you were a comic book fan, that you will ever see Dash Rendar on anything. Shadows of the Empire was really, really neat, in my opinion, because not only did you get that cool, and it was third person, behind the back perspective, but you had those those dungeon crawl, Golden Eye, Doom kind of levels where you're running through the labyrinths and trying to find the objectives or get to the end, or get to the Millennium Falcon or whatever his version was called, I forgot.
Mhm.
And in the next level, you're actually at the snow tundras of Hoth, wrapping
That was one of the
cables around an
Yeah.
AT-AT.
Primo
That was one of the
experience.
best
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hoth
that was the
levels
best.
ever.
I mean,
Yeah.
the greatest.
They
the
do it in a lot of
greatest.
Star Wars games, right? Like they've done that like 20 times over.
That's
but
what
that
it
was
is.
one
We
of
talk
the
about it
best
in our
ones.
Star Wars episode. I was like, I know we talked about this game before.
You've
Yeah.
got starship battles. You've got the tundra of Hoth. You've got the dungeon crawl, labyrinth. I mean, it had everything.
Sarlacc pits.
And I got to tell you, I found the old ad.
$100.
This game was $100 when it first came out. It was $99.99
Really?
because this game was so jam packed with hardware. They had to max out what an N64 cartridge could do to make this game
Oh.
work.
Whoa.
I've got the old Walmart and the old Toys R Us ads. It was
That's pretty cool.
$99.99 for Christmas, the first Christmas that it came out.
Jesus. Sorry, Dad. Ooh.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the one I want.
Seriously, yeah, exactly. And I remember if you got Shadows of the Empire for Christmas that year, you were the cool kid.
Jetpack. Say less.
Jet,
Oh,
right,
yeah. Ooh.
right. Mhm.
Sometimes
Okay.
good, sometimes bad.
I love it.
Speaking of Jetpack, moving on to number 2, and I adore this game, and I wish more people had gotten to play it because I think it holds up very well in the way it plays. It's Pilot Wings. It's Pilot
I
Wings
fucking love
64.
Pilot Wings.
Nice.
Pilot Wings 64 did something for me that very few games up to then had ever done. Because immersion in a game really wasn't too much of a thing back then. I really feel like it, not in the way it is today
Right.
in some ways. And, we've got VR, we've got Phasmophobia and Pilgrimage and all that stuff to really get immersed in and hunt with the sound and all that stuff. But Pilot Wings, it connected the dots so well. You had the hang glider, you had the gyrocopter, you had the jetpack, and then if you mastered everything, your bonus, you got the jumble hopper. But
Yeah.
the gameplay and the music just glued together so well in that game that I will never forget and in Pilot Wings, for those who don't know, it's a test flight game. You're a test pilot and you're piloting either the hang glider, the jetpack, or the gyrocopter in these various missions. And you had a light, medium, and a heavy version of a character you could pick. There were 2 light characters, a boy and a girl, and then a medium and then heavy, and they all made the devices handle slightly different. But getting in that hang glider for the first time and doing that first level and the music, just this gentle do 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 do
Yeah.
do 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 do.
A very chill experience that I had never experienced because I didn't play the original Pilot Wings.
It was a really
64 was better
immersive-
than
64 was
Super-
way better than the OG.
Yeah.
but it just had this great immersion factor, in my opinion,
Yeah.
that it just all worked. It all worked, and it's highly subjective, I know, but for me, it was just, you know how when something comes together so well, it just makes sense and it just works, and it just, there's nothing you can find that's wrong. Pilot Wings is one of those games for me, and it's not the best game, I'll admit. I mean, it's not perfect, but the whole package just worked.
When your when your chill game revolves around riding the wind, like it's
Yeah.
good. Yeah. You're like,
Yeah.
yeah, dude. Yeah, it's very
It's
good.
even more relaxing than riding the waves.
Right.
It was-
yeah,
it was
exactly.
rad.
Exactly.
And I had that big shell monstrosity that you could put your N64 in, and the cartridge slots were just enough to be able to fit like 8 cartridges, and it was like this shell case
Oh,
that you could store your
what?
N64
The
in.
gray thing with the
The
drawers.
gray thing.
I
Mhm.
fucking had it
Yeah.
too. Hell yeah.
I had that thing.
No idea.
Pilot Wings was
I have
always
one
the
in the warehouse
front.
right now. I'll
It
show
was
it
the
to you.
it was the front cartridge. It was the front cartridge in my little game lineup. So
Hell
whenever I
yeah.
opened it up, there was Pilot Wings. Okay.
I
Nice.
fucking love that.
Anyway, enough gushing about Pilot Wings. I adore that game. Moving on to my number one, and I didn't have to win any arm wrestling to claim this baby, but this is easily my number one N64 game, and that is dun 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 dun, dun, Super Smash Brothers. Guys, let me tell you, when my best friend at the time came along and was like, "There's a Nintendo game, and you use the Nintendo characters, and it's Link fighting Samus, and Pikachu can fight against Mario." I'm like, "What the hell
You're
are
lying.
you talking about?
Yeah,
There's no
right.
game
Next thing
like
you're gonna
that.
tell me Sonic's
no,
in it or
it's
something.
a Nintendo fighting game. Like, there is no Nintendo fighting game. What in the world are you talking about? Come over to my house." He had rented it. I came over and put Smash Brothers on, and I was like, "What?" It was the biggest surprise of my life when it came to video games.
Seeing Link
I didn't
and
know this game
Pikachu-
existed.
Pikachu.
I didn't think this game could exist, but it did. And brother, when we started playing Smash Brothers, I don't think we stopped for months. It was an everyday thing.
Unlockable
go to-
characters,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
challenge modes,
Changing all of the options, like item frequency.
Yeah.
And
When
I
I
was
realized
old
that you
enough.
didn't
Pokeballs.
have a health bar and instead it was just like just don't get knocked out, I was like, oh my god, I could win.
Let
Because
me
I was like,
help you
instead of just
understand.
getting my ass kicked constantly, I could just be someone really heavy and then just not get knocked out. You know what I mean?
Let me help
Donkey
you
Kong
understand
main.
how significant
Yeah,
this
right,
was
yeah.
to me, because I was at an age when Smash Brothers came out that I had like a little part-time little side, job, and I could cut and I could do lawns and I could work at the concession stand. I was old enough to work, right? But I didn't have like a job. But I was a good saver. I was always a good saver. I was always very stingy with my money, though. I still am. I mean, look at what I do for a living. And the day after I played Smash Bros, like, "Mom, can we go to Walmart? When do you go to Walmart? I really want to buy this video game that I played yesterday." And she's like, "Huh?" 'Cause she knows how stingy I am with money. This is the first impulse buy I ever made in my entire life, was Super Smash
Sometimes those
Brothers.
pay off.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, I never regretted that for a split second.
It wasn't that
just-
beautiful commercial, was it? The one with
with the
Happy
turtles
Together
playing
by
in the
the Turtles,
background,
where
yeah.
Donkey Kong
No.
and Yoshi and Mario beat the shit out of each other.
No,
That's
because
got
I
me.
played it, and the very next day I went and bought it. I didn't. From knowing it existed to buying it was less than 24 hours for me. And I'll end with this.
Wow.
Smash Brothers, the combat, the gameplay, everything about Smash Brothers also was, and nice shirt by the way, Buck.
From
Was one of
Magfest 2
those
years ago.
was one of those things that just, it worked in every way. It was fun. Anybody could get into it. It wasn't intimidating like Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter. It
Right.
because it was so cartoony, it got under the radar of the parents who gave a shit because it was just cartoon characters. It was very cartoony.
And no blood or anything.
And there was
Right.
nothing
Yeah.
objectionable going on, but it was the most fun game on the N64 out of everything, in my opinion. And the original holds up, and it got us to where we are now with all these amazing, Smash Brothers titles, and it's just been a darling ever since.
And then Smash
My
clones.
number one. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, totally worthy of a number one. It was one where fighting games always going to be hard for me as a child. Always around, but always going to be hard. So not my number
Thanks for the
one,
carousel,
but deserving.
fellas. That was fun. That was fun.
Yeah, totally deserving. Fantastic. Well, there you have it. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Those were our N64 console carousels. Pretty much all the good ones, we named them all. All the other ones are just kind of
Except
Honorable
Mario Kart
mention-
64. Sorry
Mario-
about that, Mario Kart.
Yeah.
Honorable
Honorable mention. Ogre Battle 64. I'll leave that
there you
there.
go.
Whoa.
Good choice.
Deep cut.
All right. Hey, we're going to take a quick break. And then when we come back, we'll do our What Else You Got real quick and end our episode. Thank you so much. Okay. Hey, we're here at the What Else You Got, this segment of our show. We can bring anything to the table, be it video game or otherwise. This week, we recorded our episodes a little close to each other. So I only have one little tiny thing, which is I started watching The Penguin on HBO.
Oh,
Oh,
nice,
cool.
nice.
Okay.
I'm on episode 4. I'm a big Batman guy. I've always liked Batman. And it's fine.
Yeah.
It's a fine
Exactly.
show.
I don't
Sorry.
want fine when it's Batman. I want excellent.
I know.
Yeah,
People
it's not
are
bad,
like,
but it's not
it's
particularly
fucking
good."
incredible. It's fucking blowing my mind. And I was like, have you seen The Sopranos? Like, come on.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
yeah, I don't want to shit on it. It's good. My favorite character in the show is not the Penguin. It's Sophia Falcone. She actually ends up having the coolest backstory. And, Colin Farrell as the Penguin, he does a good job. But it's like, it's so like, I'm walking here. Like every line is just like, my character's from New York. And I'm like, I get it. Like, your character's from New York. Thank you. I mean, Gotham. Wink,
Yeah,
wink,
right,
wink, wink.
yeah.
But yeah, so I'm 4 episodes in. I think there's like 4 more for me to watch or something like that.
Wow.
And I will keep watching it. I can't remember who I was talking to about. Oh, I just got a tattoo recently. I was talking to my person who gave me the tattoo, and I was just like, I've been watching The Penguin. He's like, yeah, it's fine. Yeah. I'm gonna keep watching it. Yeah, I'm gonna keep watching it too. That was it. So that's my review of The
So
Penguin.
how's the weather?
Yeah, it's fine. But yeah, I'll keep watching it, and maybe something crazy will happen at the end, and I'll be able to report back. But until then, it's fine. If you have HBO, I guess you can go watch it. Buck, you don't have anything else for us this week. Raph, what
Nah.
else have you got for us?
So this week I played a game that I have played before, but I hadn't played it in a long time, and I felt noteworthy because I was like, man, I forgot that this is a lot of fun. But I played a game called Barrow Trauma. I don't know. Have you guys
okay.
ever played this?
One of
heard
our
a bit?
buddies,
No?
Johnsy, plays that
Johnsy.
game a lot with his friends. Yeah.
Dude, it is the silliest, goofiest shit I've ever seen in my life. It's like you're in a submarine. You're a submarine crew, and you can play this multiplayer, so everybody can have different jobs on the submarine, including everything from being the captain, pilot, engineer, nuclear technician or whatever, weapons expert. You could be security on the ship.
Shark bait.
Yeah. You could be a trader. Some people are traders in this game. It's just so silly. Stupid ragdoll physics for like a side-scrolling 2D game.
The animation and the physics
Yeah.
are really weird.
can
It kind
just
of
go
turned me
limp.
off a little bit.
You can go limp. It's really funny though. I don't know. It's just a really silly, kind of goofy game. It's on
This looks
sale
weird.
right now. Normally, I think it's about $35, which is a little high
Whoa.
for what it is, in my opinion.
Yeah,
no
shit.
But it is still very fun. They've recently added like some multiplayer elements to it, so you can actually have multiple like submarine crews fighting each other in here. Like other players can fight you. But man,
wow.
if you want just the craziest, weirdest experience, you're in a submarine, moving around, transporting stuff from like station to station, and then you get attacked by some crazy sea creatures because you're on the moon Europa.
Nope.
It's like in the underground ocean of Europa. I've had like instances where my submarine is like sinking because like these things have punctured a hole in my submarine, infiltrated it, and I'm sinking. We're down at the bottom trying to fight off the monsters, and then the ship is just filling with water. We're trying to patch up holes, and then everybody dies. Submarine
cool.
gets crushed. Really good game. I had a lot of fun with it. But yeah, that's
You
my
want
what
a
else you got.
multiplayer crew to play with. He's always
Yeah.
playing that multiplayer. He's always looking. He tried to get me to play a couple of times. Like, nope, I'm good.
It's fun.
Underwater, fixing, drowning. Nope.
It's just hard, it's not an easy game, but
Yeah.
I think like half the fun is just ending up like dying. But you can sometimes like you can leave the submarine too, like you can go into like caves and all this stuff. It's really cool, really fun game.
Nice. Barrow Trauma.
Barrow Trauma. Yeah.
Nice. Very nice. Mr. Venacor, what else have you got for us this week?
Just one little thing. The Path of Exile 2 early access dropped like
Nice.
30 minutes ago.
Hell
And
yeah.
I can't wait to
A
play
week
it
and 30
little bit.
minutes ago.
Yeah, a week and
Yeah.
30 minutes ago, excuse me. It is currently December the 6th, Friday. But it is, for those who've never played PoE, it's a Diablo-like, which is actually way better than Diablo in my opinion.
Yeah.
So I've been waiting for this one for a while. I really like Path of Exile 1. But when I got into it, it was already so deep that I felt like I really was just kind of too late to the party. So I just sort of
Mhm.
let that one slide. So I'm really excited to be in on the ground floor for PoE 2. And I want to stream it some when I get my Twitch channel back going. Hopefully in 2 more weeks, we'll be in the
Oh
new
shit,
house.
that's
Nice,
soon.
nice.
I know. Oh, so fingers crossed for me, boys. As soon as I get up there and get everything back set up, we will be doing some fun stuff. We'll be throwing bonus rounds at you, Mac, and I'll be starting the Twitch channel back up. That is what I got.
Hell yeah, Path
Hell
of
yeah.
Exile, dose. Well, hey, thank you so much. That is our show. Thank you for listening. If you are just listening, well, first of all, like and subscribe. If you are just listening, though, may I suggest you head on over to our YouTube channel so you can, first of all, see us, and secondly, watch our live streams, which happen every Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Finally, you can reach out to us via email with any questions or comments you may want answered, or any video games you may want us to play and talk about. You can find our email. It's gametreasurepodcast@gmail.com. That and so much more can be found at our Linktree at linktree/TheGTP. Stay tuned for some new merch designs are dropping hopefully at the end of the year. And also, we're going to have our first Patreon stuff.
Episodes.
Yeah, for our first Patreon stuff for you to consume, which is going to be a deep dive into the many games of UFO 50 line by line. We want to thank Crunkwitch for the use of our theme song, Clash of the Droids. You can find them on Spotify, Apple Music, anywhere you can find music on the internet, pretty much. And of course, last but not least, we would like to thank RetroGameTreasure.com. Owned and operated by the Megabuck himself, Retro Game Treasure is a subscription service that sends you boxes of retro video games every month. That's right. They take all of the hassle out of collecting retro video games. No more hunting for them, no more guessing which ones will work, and no more wasting your time as an adult, something you don't have much of. Instead, you simply tell Retro Game Treasure what kinds of games you want to collect, and then those games come to you every month. That's right. You will receive a box that is filled with games specifically for the systems that you have and for the genres that you like. They even keep track of the games that you have so you never get repeat games. You want to start collecting a new console? You can do that too, because you can head on over to their console shop where you can buy a new console. Then you go over to your profile, click that you have that console now, and then boom, those games just start coming to you. Those same genres that you already told them that you like, now he's just going to give them to you for that console now. So start collecting games the easy way today, dummy, with RetroGameTreasure.com. Until next week, my name is Max Stein, and I love the Game Treasure Podcast. It's so bad.
It's so bad.